way artificial intelligence works, and maybe I'll pause here and explain. I'm really talking about large language models. Large language
Yeah.
models really are doing prediction.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to my podcast, AI with Alex. Today, we're with Yomi. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce your name.
That's correct.
Okay, nice. And today, we're going to talk about generative AI. But before we talk about that, I want to hear a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Yomi Odedei. Um, I've had a interesting career. Started out with the love of technology, all things tech. I was the kind of guy who used to read the paper manual in the days when computer software came with paper manuals. Um, I was interested in it because it was novel. I remember the first job I had, there was an IBM Selectric typewriter, the type that you could program. And so you program it to do like a contract, several pages of text, and you'd load the paper in it and press one key and it would produce 10 pages, and it fascinated me. I was like, wow. And that wow factor has stayed with me for many, many years. Lately, I got into, well, first, let me say the career paths. So I was in legal practice, and that was where I encountered the machines that could produce long contracts with one click of a button. And then I got into IT, initially as a programmer, and then I worked as a database administrator. And in the last 15 years or so, I've been doing enterprise applications. Um, what I mean by that, softwares that control the whole company, from human resources through purchasing and manufacturing and shipping of goods and accounting and all that stuff. So I could say that I've had a good career in IT, and I've worked with project management tools as well. And in 2015, I decided to go and enroll for a doctorate degree program. So I completed my doctorate in 2020. And that was around the time that really artificial intelligence started coming up, because that was when NVIDIA and a couple of other hardware manufacturers started tuning their graphics chips to serve for AI processing. So I've had a good ride, watching from the sidelines, and I use AI myself in a lot of work. So that's my elevator speech in 2 minutes.
Okay, nice. So, for the audience that doesn't know what generative AI is, it's basically a type of AI that can create new content and ideas. It can include conversations, stories, images, videos, music, etc. Basically, for example, one generative AI is like ChatGPT, Dolly AI, Gemini. So, let's talk about the good about generative AI. So, before I talk about that more, what do you think about generative AI?
I think it's a step change in the way we use computers. And what I mean by that is, if you think back to the maybe, let's say, early 1990s, computers were like, a big machine, the size of a room, where you had people, taking the computer code on cards and feeding it and all of that, it was not accessible to the mass of people. And then you had the personal computers that really was a step change in the way that computing was massively available. And people started writing software for personal computers, and it really turned into a revolution in the way that people do white collar work and even some blue collar work. And what I mean by that, white collar work, things you do like basically creative stuff, things you do with your mind, and things like that, where blue collar work is more like, work you do with your hands, maybe you're making something, manufacturing something using tools, manual stuff. Um, and really, personal computers changed the whole of white collar work and introduced a lot of innovation and productivity gains that we enjoy today. This environment where we're able to have a podcast where we're hundreds of miles away from each other and we can hear each other and interact in real time is a product of that revolution. And I think that generative AI is the beginning of another type of revolution where it offers us the opportunity to take our creativity and the productivity to another level, just as the previous personal computer revolution did. I think that's what generative AI has a potential to do. Now, of course, as you mentioned, like with everything in life, there are two sides. There's a good and the bad, and we'll talk more about that.
Yeah, that's great. What I think is basically what you just said, that generative AI is basically the future. Really, it's the present now, but it's going to continue to get better and better, and over time, it's going to basically practically replace all of us.
I
And
would dispute that because the science fiction has been for decades that computers are going to replace human beings and they're going to really, maybe get together and decide that they can do things better than us and take over. I don't agree with that, and I'll explain the reason why. The way that human intelligence works and that humans process information and that humans are creative is different from the way that artificial intelligence works. And in fact, it's not really intelligence in the way that human beings are intelligent. So I'll give you an example. Um, we as humans think, we have imagination, we are creative. You can take an infant, that doesn't speak and all, that infant can recognize the voice of its mother. A person in grade school has a vocabulary and the ways of putting words together and all that, that is very, if you think about it, it's amazing. It's a miracle, that. But the way artificial intelligence works, and maybe I'll pause here and explain. I'm really talking about large language models. Large language
yeah,
models really are doing prediction. So they have a large set of data they've been trained on. And so they know that when you have these three words, the next word is likely to be whatever, So that's really the way they work, which, if you think about it in human terms, it's not intelligence, it's prediction. So
yeah,
if you, for instance, take DALI that can produce images, it's not creative in the way that a person is creative. So what DALI is doing is that it takes your prompt and it interprets it in context. And based on the context, it knows that this is what you would likely want. So just to give an example of that, you tell Dali, I'm working on branding for my new podcast, and my new podcast is going to be about dogs and cats, and I want you to make an image for the brand, and it should be bright. You have to tell Dali in descriptive terms
Yeah.
what you want, and then it will create an image. You probably have some kind of computers in there because you ask for computers. It'll use bright colors instead of dark colors and all that. But it's really interpreting your prompt in context. That's different from creativity. So a human being can, in their imagination, take a blank piece of paper and some paint and create something out of the ether. Because I argue, my opinion is that because machines do not have imagination, they cannot take over from human beings. Because just as we humans have created the machines that create the chips, and we've created the software that programs the artificial intelligence to the point where artificial intelligence now can produce code, we will always be one step ahead because we have imagination. But you know, the day that we create a machine that can replicate imagination, then maybe you'd be right that it will take over. But until then, I think before that happens, I'll be long gone from this planet. So I would have to worry about it.
Yeah, I understand what you're talking about. Like right now, AI is like very far away from even being close to having a human intelligence.
Mhm,
But talking about in the future where we have ASI, artificial super intelligence,
mhm,
it's going to have a consciousness, going to have even a better emotional intelligence than humans. And in the future, way, way in the future, it's definitely going to replace humans. But right now, I feel like even now with our pretty bad technology, people are still being pretty lazy with AI. Instead of working hard, just using it to do pretty much half of work and stuff. And so with generative AI, with like ChatGPT, for example, students using ChatGPT to create essays instead of doing it themselves,
mhm.
that's kind of a form of taking over because it's basically ChatGPT is basically doing the job of a student. So that's basically what I was talking about.
Okay.
Speaking of bad things, do you think the bad things in generative AI counter out the good things?
Would say the good things are more than the bad things. And also, I would add that this world is made up of a duality. So that everything has good and bad. If you want to travel 200 miles, you could walk and it will take you 3 weeks, or you can get in the car and it'll take you a couple of hours, to get there. But the car can pollute the environment. The car, if not operated properly, could be dangerous to other road users or even to the operator, the driver of the car. So, what I'm trying to say is that everything in life, everything in this world that we live in, always has two sides at least. There's a good and bad to everything. However, my opinion is that the good in generative AI, the pluses far outweigh the minuses. And I'll just comment on what you said about, students using generative AI to do their work. And it's not only students, it's a lot of people, a lot of white collar workers. And really, I see it again in two ways. One is it makes the student better able to use the tools, because with white collar work, and I think you mentioned this earlier, generative AI is going to change the landscape. So if you're
Yeah.
not able to use it, if you don't know how to optimize it, you're going to be left behind. That's one. So I encourage students to use it. But what I also say is that when students use it, you have to use it with knowledge. So if you have to write an essay on, say, a topic in biology, photosynthesis, and you give it a prompt and it comes up with that. First of all, you need to validate that what it's saying is accurate. Okay, because
Yeah.
depending on the model that you use, it may have a knowledge cutoff. So if you're using the free version of ChatGPT, for example, it has a knowledge cutoff date of January 2020. It doesn't know anything beyond that. If you're using the paid version of ChatGPT, its cutoff date is, I believe, April 2023. Now, with
Yeah.
science, things move rapidly. And even if you used like Microsoft Copilot or Google Gemini, which has access to the internet, so it doesn't have a cutoff date, there's still stuff out there that it may not know. That's one. Two,
Yeah.
because what it's actually doing is um, predicting what the next word is, what the next phrase is in context, it can hallucinate. So you cannot be certain that the results it's giving you are accurate. You cannot ever take uh, the output of a large language model as gospel. It's not. So even as a student, when you give it your prompt and it produces some material for you, it's your responsibility as a student to review that material, make sure it's accurate, and for you to do that, you have to know what you're talking about. You have to have
Yeah.
read the material that your instructor or the textbook or whatever, so that you can cross-check. There's a famous story of an attorney who was preparing for a court case, and he got the I don't know which one it was, so I won't mention the name of the large language model, but he put in a prompt, and the language model gave him the text for his court documents, and he put it together, lots of references and cases and materials, and he filed it in court, and turned out to be basically garbage because he didn't validate that the model's results were accurate, and he lost the case or something. It's in the paper, and there's a lot of examples like that. So I would say students should use it, but use it as an accessory. You still need to master what you're talking about. So it's like, maybe if you think of a calculator, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. If you put in the math numbers and the operator, the calculator will tell you the correct answer. But you need to know what the operator is. You
Yeah.
need to know the principles of math so that you can use a calculator more effectively. So I hope that explains my perspective on it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like you're kind of right about the using AI for an accessory instead of using it to replace you. But sometimes even using ChatGPT as an accessory can kind of go wrong. For example, I was coding a website and I needed help on this one functionality. I was coding a game and I needed the character to be able to collect a special coin that would make it go faster, pretty much. And I asked ChatGPT because I was pretty stuck on it.
Mhm.
ChatGPT, like, how can I add this functionality to my website? And oh my goodness, I spent hours trying to figure out the best prompt to give ChatGPT because every single time I put it in my prompt, it always gave me like some garbage code, and I always used it in my game. It would like either break the game completely or it would just not solve it
Right.
the problem at all.
Yeah.
So I would ask ChatGPT again and again. So I was like, I might as well just not add it to my game. So what I'm saying is, I feel like people are being too dependent on something that's not even very good in the first place. People are using ChatGPT to write their emails, do their essays, put their scripts, when it's pretty bad. So that's why every time you see an AI generated like image or video, you're always like, "Man, this is so bad. I bet this was generated by AI." Because AI has developed this reputation for being terrible because it's not ready, it's not like really good yet, and that's the sad part, is people are already using it so much for their lives. So what I'm worried about is in the future when AI is actually good, people are going to depend on it so much that you won't even be able to tell the difference between AI and human. You'd think, wow, AI, this is so good, but at the same time, you'll be so stuck on, oh man, is this AI, or is this like, or is this someone
Maybe
actually
you
trying?
have a point, but the example I like to use when people say that is, think about the programs that NASA has for exploring deep space. So, they've got these robots, really, because the spacecraft are robots. They have programming that lets them, um, it, autonomously take pictures and transmit the images back to Earth and all that. And we humans receive that data. We're fascinated by the pictures that it gives us of, other worlds that we cannot physically get to and all that. But at the same time, the machine and AI of today, I don't know about tomorrow, it's really dumb. It's not conscious.
Yeah,
And I think that's where um, the gap is with AI generated content. So if you take even a moderately competent person, maybe a writer or a poet, the or an artist, a graphical artist, what they can produce, will be smooth because it's got the human touch. It comes from imagination and all of that. It's got the elements of curiosity, and it's not the same. So if you and I had a class where we were to draw a picture of a dog running in a field, your dog will be completely different from mine. But
yeah,
if you give that prompt to a large language model or an artificial intelligence model, it's going to produce the same thing virtually every time, which is where the lack of creativity comes in. And I argue that that creative edge is our secret sauce as human beings, which gives us the ability, and I believe it will keep giving us the ability to um, stay ahead. So if I use the example that you gave of trying to up with your code for your website, well, the reason it wasn't working wasn't really because your prompt was not understood. The prompt was understood in context and it did its best, but you were hitting the limitations. And the reason you knew that it wasn't working was when you took the output and put it into the program, it didn't do what you wanted it to do. If you had more knowledge or more experience with maybe Ruby on Rails or Python or whatever language, you could have saved the hours that you,
yeah,
you used trying to get the right prompt, just writing the code by yourself. Because what you were experiencing in that situation was hitting the limits not only of the model itself, but of your own ability to program the model. So if you think about the regular type of programming, you write code in C++ or whatever in those days. Now with um, the large language models, you're not really writing code. You're telling it, which is why they call it a language. You're telling it what you want it to do. Help
yeah.
me. produce a Python code that does this. So it interprets that and tries to come up with the correct answer, but we always will hit that limit. And what I remind people is that limit is going to go further and further. So if you think about, uh, 100 years ago, when cars were first invented and all that, the fastest car could maybe do 40 miles per hour. Today, if you go to Indianapolis, the specially adapted cars can do 200 miles an hour on the track. Even the regular, automobile that you use on the freeway can go a lot faster and a lot safer than the cars of 50 years ago. And so really, that is what gives me optimism about artificial intelligence, that if one understands that it's an accessory or a tool, tools help us do things more efficiently, faster, easier. If you have a whole lot of laundry to do, and you stick it all in the washing machine and put some detergent and all that, click a button, come back an hour later, all your clothes are clean. If you had to, like, put them, into a basin and wash them by hand, it take you 5 hours. So I see artificial intelligence in that light, that if you use it as a tool, you understand how to use it. And I tell young people that you guys are lucky you're living in the age where you guys understand this natively. You understand, it teaches young people how to use a game controller for the Xbox or any other
Yeah.
game. Once you hold it and you feel it, you figure it out. The younger people understand AI and IT and all this stuff natively. We older people, we have to actually learn it. We have to actually um, be taught. But that leads to the point that even for you young people, you need to understand what the technology is doing and how it is supposed to work, so that when it does the wrong thing, you can fix it, and you can tell,
Yeah.
oh, this is wrong, and this is the reason why it is wrong. That understanding of the why is a human thing. A computer doesn't understand why. A computer has, well, today's computers, let's say it that way. Today's computers don't have that judgment. They don't have morality. They don't have ethics. They don't have those attributes of consciousness that even babies who can't talk understand that. If I go back to the example of the baby who can recognize the parent's voice, even though the baby has no language, that baby can distinguish the parent's face from another um, person's face. But
Yeah.
in the home, the baby has not seen 10,000 faces. For artificial intelligence to distinguish one face from another, it has to be trained on a large number of faces. So we human beings still have a lot of, uh, advantage over the machines for now.
Yeah. But there's probably one of the most worrying part of Gen AI, and it's the copyright issue. Let's just say you're using Dolly AI and you want to generate um like a let's just say you want to generate a fake painting that's in a style, let's just say like cats jumping on clouds in the style of Leonardo da Vinci,
Yep.
and when you generate it, um, you have the image, but no one, like, who owns the image, right? Because you set it in the style of an artist
Right.
that technically you said it in the style, so they kind of own it. But then the cats, AI, the AI is trained on like thousands of cats. So all the people whose images were used also own it. And you also own it because you're the person who generated the image, and so is the company because you used their AI. So the question is, who really owns the image?
That,
And so, also another issue is, let's just say you want to generate a picture of, let's just say, um, a famous person, right?
mhm.
And they're at like the beach, and it's kind of. I mean, if you were the famous person, it's nice. You don't have
Yeah.
to go to the beach and take a picture. You're actually there. But for a random person to generate an image, a realistic image of yourself, it's kind of scary
Yes.
because what's more scarier than taking a picture of yourself doing something random is actually generating a picture of yourself doing something random because they could do anything that
Out of
they
the
wanted.
Yeah. You're
Yeah.
right. You're
And
right.
so, what are your thoughts on this copyright issue?